My gray hair makes me feel so old. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna wash that gray right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that gray right out of my hair.
You got to see it to believe it. Who told you you can't have it all?
Now this is strange. There's like this butterfly garden here, and they list all of the butterflies that you might see in the garden. That's really weird to see at a mall, but super cool actually. Weird but cool. Welcome back to the Urbex Dead Mall series. I recently made an emergency trip up to the Chicago metro area to film this mall because it's slated to close in the near future and be redeveloped. This is the Gulf Mills Mall in Niles, Illinois. Now, this was a mall that was on my bucket list for a long time, and I just never seemed to make it over here. I mean, yeah, I'd be in the area filming something else, but I'd always run out of time. So here we are, actually finally taking a look at this mall before it's gone. This is a very strange mall, and we'll get into that later on in this video, and you'll figure out exactly why it's strange. But first, I wanted to go over the history of this mall. Gulf Mills would open to the public in October of 1960 as an open-air mall. Its main feature would be an office tower designed by Chicago architect Edo Belli. This office tower was designed to look like the top of a golf ball, hence the name Gulf Mills. Having Mill in the name of the mall, you would think that it would have been developed by the Mills Corporation, but in fact it wasn't, but it did feature a lot of crazy styling. It had ponds, bridges, and even a working water wheel. Soon after the mall opened, a Lord's department store would be built on the property, but close a few years later to be replaced by a JCPenney. By the time 1994 rolled around, General Growth Properties would take over management of the mall. From here on out, the mall would just change hands from one owner to another, going from General Growth Properties to Milwaukee Golf Management, and finally Sterling Organization. It would change hands for the final time in 2014 when Sterling Retail Service would take over ownership of the mall. So let's talk about what stores were in this mall over its lifetime. There's a lot to cover here, and they may not be in chronological order, but I wanted to mention at least most of the stores. 1989 would see a store called Main Street be acquired by Kohl's and rebranded as Kohl's. Target would open in the mall in 1998 across from the Kohl's in the North Wing. In 2005, there would be a Value City Furniture that would open. 2010 would see a Showplace 12 Cinema be acquired by AMC, and the Circuit City, which opened in 1990 and was located outside the mall, would close in the mid-2000s. It would later be replaced with a Lucky McGee's Sports Bar. 2012 would see Ross Dress for Less, replacing a huge dead section of the mall. 2017 would see a Panera Bread added to the mall, but I don't recall seeing that when I visited. Ulta Beauty, a more recent addition, would come to the mall in November of 2017 and replace the south section of the food court. So I just needed to pop in for a minute. What you're looking at right here is actually the elevators that lead up into the office towers. It's a really weird section, and it's very, very unique to see an office tower in the middle of a mall like this. All right, now back to the history. Now, of course, we can't be covering a dead mall without talking about Sears, because it would announce that on October 4th of 2018, it would be closing, and would permanently close in December of 2018. The Kohl's we mentioned earlier in the video, well, that would be a casualty of the 2020 pandemic, and it would announce that it would be closing that year. It would later relocate to a shopping center in Morton Grove, Illinois. The final blow to this mall would come in January of 2022 when the mall announced that it would be redeveloping most of the mall, planning to demolish the former Sears, AMC, iconic circular tower, and various outparcels for a live work and play styled development. Now, I am thrilled to see that they plan to bring back the iconic water wheel that used to be at this mall. But basically, this is going to be one of those mixed-use developments with living spaces, retail, green spaces, apartments. You know how it goes. The same thing that just about every other mall around the country is doing. And if you don't get it right, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work. Alright, so you're probably wondering what we're doing outside here in the middle of the video walking around the parking lot. Well, you see, the Sears that used to be at this mall was right in the middle of the main corridor, joining the two sections of the mall together. So when the Sears closed permanently, they shut the store down and then you could no longer access the other half of the mall. Now, I have seen some malls like this where you needed to pass through a department store in order to get to the other section, and when the department store closes and goes out of business, they actually will wall it off and make it like a corridor, like a pass-through thing, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't do that with this mall, because you have to walk quite a ways all the way around the Target to get back into the other section of the mall, and there's really not much of anything in that other section. I'm sure there was back when the Sears closed. So the newer, more updated wing we were in was the north wing, and this is the south wing that we're headed to. And I'm sure that the closure of the Sears and not being able to access this wing directly through the Sears is probably the main reason that all the stores in this section died off and why they never renovated it. But boy, oh boy, I'm glad that they never renovated this section because it is so 1970s and 80s. It is just incredible to walk through this section. You get a glimpse into the past as to what this mall used to look like back in the day, and I wish the whole mall was like this. You know, I kind of think if malls would embrace their retro theming a little more and not necessarily renovate them, but just upkeep them and keep them all nostalgic, I think a lot of people would come back to the mall just for the vibes and the feeling and the nostalgia behind them. Because who wants to shop in a bland, boring, Simonized mall where everything is just white and everything just looks the same? I sure don't. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Urbex Dead Mall series. I want to thank you for coming along and taking a walk through the Gulf Mills Mall in Niles, Illinois. If you like this kind of content, definitely give the video a thumbs up. It really helps out, as well as subscribe. And head on over to the Patreon link on screen and in the description box below if you want more content just like this. And I'll see you on another episode of the Urbex Dead Mall series.